Hi, this is the business guy with Asset Protection Planners and Lawyers Limited. One of our websites is called OFFSHORECompany.com, so we set up a lot of offshore companies, help clients set up offshore bank accounts, mainly for asset protection from lawsuits. U.S. people are taxed on worldwide income. Some people just assume it's a tax thing. It's not. But for lawsuit protection, if somebody wants to set up a business internationally, we have a lot of people contact us to set up international companies and bank accounts. Some people want asset protection from lawsuits. Some people want privacy. But the key thing is we set up a lot of international companies. I do a lot of traveling internationally, throughout Europe, Asia, been to Australia, haven't been to Africa. That's one place, South America, I've been there. But anyway, just wanted to go over some things if you want to travel or if you're thinking about doing business internationally. Traveling, especially, my wife and I wanted to go to Spain last year, but then COVID hit. We've been planning on this for a while. We wanted to go to Spain and Greece and see those beautiful white buildings. It is not to be yet, but let's go ahead and go through the different continents and just discuss the travel restrictions just to kind of give you a general idea how things are going on around the world with the COVID thing, and that's the biggest thing affecting travel right now. Oh, and by the way, if you like this helpful information, please be sure to click the like button below. It helps YouTube promote this video, and I'd really, really appreciate your help on that. Also, you can click the subscribe button so that when more videos come out like this, you'll be up to date right away. Now, I don't know, probably Africa isn't a common continent for American travelers. A lot of people will want to travel to some of the high-end Middle East, like areas like the United Arab Emirates. One of the most popular countries for tourism for American, European, Australian people is Kenya because of the safaris and so on. Well, in Kenya, only 4.98% of the population has been vaccinated. Pretty low. What it says is most visitors from the United States need to provide a negative COVID-19 test in order to enter Kenya. So open with restrictions is what the classification is. So Kenya. South Africa is another common tourism destination for people from Europe and the United States, Australia, and so on. 20% of the population has been vaccinated. Same idea in South Africa. You have to bring a negative COVID-19 result, so it's open with restrictions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the continent of Asia, the most populated continent by far. China, totally closed. Now, 76.2% of the population has been vaccinated. Pretty high percent. One of the highest in the world, but it's totally closed. Can't go into China right now, even if you wanted to. It says most visitors from the United States will not be allowed to enter China. Hong Kong, the same. India, totally closed. So the two most populous nations in the world, totally closed. Third most populous being the United States. Fourth most populous, Indonesia. 32% of their population has been vaccinated. 46% of the population in India has been vaccinated. Japan totally closed. Almost 70% of their population has been vaccinated. When I lived in Southern California, there was a big Korean population. 75% of the people in South Korea have been vaccinated, but the country's totally closed. Couldn't go there if you wanted to. Even somebody who might be a Korean citizen who also is a U.S. citizen or lives in the United States, if they have the dual citizenship, if that's even possible, they can't even go to Korea right now. South Korea if they wanted to. North Korea, of course, totally shut off. Who would want to go there anyway? Vietnam, my wife and I went on vacation. An amazing place to go. You wouldn't think of it as a vacation destination, but it was just really fascinating. Loved it about 6 years ago. Great time. Beautiful, beautiful place. Amazing, massive population in the big city. The beach area was just gorgeous. Totally closed. 31% of the population vaccinated. So let's go ahead and go to the next continent. Let's take a look at the Caribbean, which is, I guess, part of the Americas, but we do a lot of business there. We set up a lot of companies in Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis. 47% of the population vaccinated, and it's open with restrictions. Now, the thing with the Caribbean is it's huge for tourism. This has annihilated their economies down there because tourism is so big in the Caribbean, and with their travel restrictions, it's tough. So most of the countries, almost all the countries, are open with restrictions. Montserrat, totally closed. Dominican Republic, it's totally open. You don't even have to have a negative COVID test to visit the Dominican Republic. 55% of the population has been vaccinated. Another popular destination, the Cayman Islands. A very beautiful place. It's very modernized. It's a wealthy country. 82% of the people have been vaccinated. Totally closed. You couldn't even go there if you wanted to. Jamaica, open with restrictions. Puerto Rico, open with restrictions. You have to show a negative COVID-19 test. Same with the Bahamas, which is very, very popular, especially where I live in Florida. A ton of people I know go there regularly. It's open. You can go there. You just have to bring a negative COVID-19 test. U.S. Virgin Islands, same idea. And let's scoot on over to Central America. Costa Rica, big for Americans. It's one of the #1 places outside the U.S. where people retire. Huge. Totally open, no restrictions. You can go there. You don't even have to show a negative COVID test. 63% of the people vaccinated. Belize, we set up a lot of companies there. 46% of the people vaccinated. You just have to show a negative COVID-19 test. Panama, my wife and I went there for our 25th wedding anniversary a number of years back. 66% of the population vaccinated, pretty high percentage for a third world country. You have to show a negative COVID-19 test if you've not been vaccinated. But if you've been fully vaccinated, just prove it and you can get in without any restrictions. So just bring your vaccination card. A lot easier in Panama than some of these other countries. Let's go ahead and take a look at Europe. What probably the most popular jurisdiction for U.S. people is the United Kingdom. You know, they want to go over there and see the palaces, the clock tower, and so on. 71% of the people vaccinated. Unvaccinated visitors from the U.S. need a negative COVID-19 test and they need to quarantine. Vaccinated visitors from the U.S. just need to show a negative COVID-19 test result and you're good to go. Switzerland, same thing, exactly the same thing as the U.K. Spain, visitors from the U.S. won't even be allowed to enter if you're not vaccinated. Fully vaccinated people can enter without restrictions. Just bring your card. Sweden, totally closed. My wife and I went there a few years back. Can't get in there. Closed. Norway, closed. Denmark is another popular country, open with restrictions. Germany is another popular place. Just had a friend go there. 67% of the people vaccinated. Unvaccinated visitors from the U.S. to go to Germany, you have to have a negative COVID-19 test and then you need to quarantine after you enter. 2 weeks. He couldn't leave his hotel room for 2 weeks. Of course, he went there before the vaccine, and fully vaccinated visitors to Germany can enter without restrictions. Just bring that card. Make sure to keep a copy of that card. Italy is another big one. Unvaccinated have to have a negative test result and you have to quarantine for a couple of weeks. Vaccinated, just bring your vaccination card and a negative COVID-19 test. I love Italy. My wife and I went there and just had a beautiful, beautiful time. Ireland, I'm actually an Irish citizen and a U.S. citizen, of course, first. Never lived there, but if you have a parent or grandparent born there, you can become a citizen. I became a citizen, took advantage of that. Unvaccinated visitors need to provide a negative COVID-19 result and quarantine to enter Ireland. If you're from the U.S., you can enter without restrictions if you prove that you're vaccinated. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the Middle East. United Arab Emirates, I've always wanted to go there. Just had one of our associates from the company go there and just had an incredible time. And I'll tell you what, I was jealous. 92.75% of the population in the UAE vaccinated. Amazing. Unvaccinated visitors need to provide a COVID-19 negative test result and they have to quarantine for a couple of weeks. Vaccinated visitors can enter UAE with a negative COVID-19 test result, so it's pretty open. Big, huge tourism destination. Yemen closed, Kuwait closed. Who would want to go there? Israel. My wife and I went there a few years back and just had a great time in Israel. 69% of the population vaccinated, but no way, no how. Not getting in there. It is a totally closed country right now. They're not spreading that stuff around. So that gives you an idea about the Middle East. North America. Canada, U.S. visitors will not be allowed if they're not vaccinated. But if you're vaccinated, you can get in with a negative COVID-19 test. Mexico, totally unrestricted. Vaccinated, not. You don't have to prove anything. You just go into Mexico. Bermuda, 70% of the population vaccinated there. As far as Bermuda goes, most visitors from the U.S. just need to provide a negative COVID-19 test and you can enter no problem. Big tourist destination, of course, so they want to be open. They want that money to flow in there. South America. My wife and I went down to Colombia. It is totally open, no restrictions. You just prance right in. Don't have to prove anything. Argentina, totally closed. Brazil, open with restrictions. I wouldn't want to go there right now. It's rampant down there. I'll tell you what, it's big. Most visitors from the U.S. need to provide a negative COVID-19 test, but goodness gracious, there's so much COVID spreading around down there. Who'd want to go? And well, 70% of the population vaccinated, which is pretty good for South American country. Chile, totally closed, 78% vaccinated. So it seems like a lot of the places that are really, really highly vaccinated are also highly restricted. South Pacific. We set up a lot of companies, a lot of trusts in the Cook Islands, totally closed. Couldn't go in there if you wanted to. 65% of the population vaccinated. Most visitors from the U.S. will not be allowed to enter the Cook Islands. In fact, I know some people in the Cook Islands. Just talked to one of them a couple days ago. He couldn't go to New Zealand and come back. They wouldn't let him back in, even though he lives there. Couldn't just leave and come back, so that's part of the deal. Fiji, totally closed. Micronesia closed. Marshall Islands totally closed. Samoa totally closed. Couldn't get in there if you wanted to. New Zealand totally closed. You can't get in there. 67% of the population vaccinated in New Zealand. Australia totally closed. 63% of the population vaccinated. Most visitors from the U.S. will not be allowed to enter Australia. They just don't want that stuff spreading around. So that kind of gives you some ideas about different countries around the world and their COVID restrictions. We talked about South Africa. I just read a law this morning that in South Africa they just passed a new law that says that the government can take your property and they don't have have to give you any compensation. It's kind of like it was in Zimbabwe a few years back. They were just seizing people's properties. I mean, people's families who owned these farms for hundreds of years. They just seized it and nothing they could do about it. So that's why it's so important to deal with a professional organization such as ours. We have experience and we know where to and where not to put your money. We have some super, super safe, great places to put your money. In fact, the least corrupt country in the world, Denmark and New Zealand, tied for number one, the least corrupt countries in the world. The most trusted is where the least shenanigans happen, and they respect the rule of law. Cook Islands is part of New Zealand. We set up a lot of trust there, and that's the one reason why we do it, and why I have my trust there, because it's safe, it's trusted, and the government enforces the law. In some countries like Belize, you pay a government official and you get what you want. In the Cook Islands, you pay a government official and you get thrown in jail. There's no questions asked. Very, very strict. And that's why I like and I trust Cook Islands, again, part of New Zealand. Very, very, very trusted jurisdiction. In fact, the number one most trusted jurisdiction, if you do a Google search for the Global Corruption Index, number one, look at the Wikipedia article, number one is New Zealand and Denmark tied for number one. Again, Cook Islands, part of New Zealand. So that's why we do a lot of business there. I've been doing business there for about 26 years, I believe, something like that. So we set up a lot of trust there. Very, very great jurisdiction. We do a lot of banking there as well for clients. So anyway, that kind of gives you an idea about what's going on around the world right now and the travel restrictions. And if you want to go travel, there's a lot of places in the Caribbean to go see. A lot of European destinations. You just have to bring the negative COVID test. So hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Please click like, subscribe, share this video. This is The Business Guy.